What happens when two gym bullies decide the quiet, worn-out guy in the corner is an easy target? They thought they were humiliating a soft, out-of-shape single dad on camera. They had no idea the man they pushed spent 10 years in the most elite brotherhood on earth. Stick with me to the end, because the moment he finally stops holding back is one you will not forget. And if stories about bullies getting exactly what they earned are your thing, hit subscribe now so the next one finds you. Nathaniel Reed was a ghost in his own life, and he liked it that way. He was 36, and the lines around his eyes belonged to a man who had lived 3 lifetimes. But most people who passed him in the grocery store in Austin, Texas, just saw a tired father counting coupons in his head. He wore faded gray sweatpants, oversized hoodies, and a battered ball cap pulled low. His days ran on a schedule he kept like a mission plan: pack the lunchbox, drive his 6-year-old daughter Chloe to first-grade work, long hours as an independent logistics consultant, and keep the house from quietly falling apart around him. 3 years earlier, his wife had died from a fast, cruel illness that gave them barely a month to say goodbye. After the funeral, Nathaniel buried something else along with her. He boxed up his medals, folded his uniforms into razor creases, and locked the whole trunk in the attic where he would not have to look at it. For 10 years before that, Nathaniel had been an operator with the United States Navy SEALs. I had shivered through the surf off Coronado in Bud's Class 274, sweated through summers in Ramadi, and moved through night raids in the Black Mountains of the Hindu Kush. He knew the exact weight of a man's life leaving him. He knew the taste that fear leaves in your mouth. But Chloe did not need a warrior. She needed a dad. She needed someone who could braid her hair badly and make dinosaur-shaped pancakes on Sunday mornings. So Nathaniel made himself quiet, patient, and easy to overlook. His one refuge was Ironclad Athletics, a warehouse-style gym on the edge of the city. He did not go there to make friends. He went to keep the noise in his head from getting loud. He trained at 6 in the evening, right after picking Chloe up from her after-school program. The owner, a gruff retired firefighter named Samuel Jenkins, let Chloe sit in the glass-walled office with her coloring books while her father worked. Nathaniel kept his sessions simple and punishing: heavy deadlifts, strict pull-ups, long rounds on the heavy bag in the back corner. He wore a sweatshirt even in the Texas heat, hiding the corded muscle underneath and the jagged shrapnel scar that climbed up his left shoulder. To anyone glancing over, he was just a heavy-set dad sweating out a bad day. Then there were Gavin and Garrett Foster. If Nathaniel was a ghost, the Foster twins were a neon sign bolted to a siren. At 24, they had turned their parents' real estate money into a local social media following, and they were built for the camera. Tall, lean, matching tribal tattoos, custom compression gear that begged to be looked at. Both held black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and trained a flashy competition style of Taekwondo on the side. They didn't simply work out, they performed. Every session came with ring lights, a tripod, and a phone recording for their tens of thousands of followers. They called themselves the alpha males of Ironclad, criticized other members' form, slammed weights down for effect, and treated the gym like a stage they had rented. Samuel hated it, but they paid for premium memberships and pulled in a younger crowd, so he swallowed his opinion and let it slide. Nathaniel simply avoided them. His training had wired him to read a room for threats and liabilities, and the Fosters were the second kind. They had skill without discipline and swagger without weight, boys playing at being dangerous men. The first crack came on a humid Tuesday. Nathaniel was short on time. He had promised Chloe ice cream if she finished her math homework, and right then she was pressed against the office glass, holding up a completed worksheet with a gap-toothed grin. He walked to the only open squat rack to finish his last set. The twins had the rack beside it, and they had taken over both, using the second barbell as a stand for their gym bags. "Excuse me," Nathaniel said, his voice a low rumble. "You using this bar?" Gavin, the older twin, by 4 minutes paused mid-pose in the mirror. He turned slowly and looked Nathaniel up and down, the baggy hoodie, the frayed sneakers, the slight slouch Nathaniel wore to seem harmless. "Yeah, old man," Gavin said, adjusting the strap of his bag on the barbell. "We're using it. Lighting's better on this side." "I just need it for one set. 3 minutes and I'm out of your way." Nathaniel kept his hands open and loose. Garrett laughed a sharp nasal sound and repositioned his phone on the tripod. 3 minutes, bro. Look at you. A heavy set of squats might blow a kneecap. We're filming for our sponsors. Go use the leg press with the other soccer moms. For a heartbeat, something cold and flat passed over Nathaniel's face. It was the same look he had once given a man across a dusty room in Ramadi, a look that said, without a single word, that the other person was still breathing, only because Nathaniel allowed it. Then he glanced at the office glass. Chloe was waving. The cold went out of him like a switch flipping. Nathaniel let out a soft, self-deprecating laugh and rubbed the back of his neck. "All right, guys, no problem. Keep up the good work." He walked away. "That's what I thought," Gavin scoffed behind him. "Beta energy." Nathaniel heard it. He did not care. Ego had been a liability on the battlefield, and it was a liability in the parking lot, too. He packed his bag, collected his daughter, and took her for mint chocolate chip. "Those men weren't very nice," Chloe said, in the car, chocolate on her chin worksheet still clutched in one hand like a trophy. "No," he agreed. "They weren't. You could have told them off." "I could have." He watched her in the mirror. "But you know what costs more than losing an argument, winning one you didn't need to have? I got my daughter ice cream instead. I think I came out ahead." She thought about that with the deadly seriousness of a 6-year-old, then decided it was acceptable and went back to her cone. He thought the whole thing was finished. He did not know the vipers had just picked their new favorite prey. A week passed, and the tension in the gym did not fade. It changed shape. The twins had realized something they found useful: Nathaniel would not fight back. In their minds, a man who would not defend himself was the perfect prop. They needed a foil for their alpha mindset videos, someone to play the weak, complacent modern man they were always ranting about on their podcast. The quiet dad in baggy clothes fit the role they had written for him. It happened on a Friday with the gym packed and the sound system thumping against the concrete. Chloe sat on a bench near the heavy bags, safely out of the weight areas this time, drawing a golden retriever with a fat box of crayons. Nathaniel wrapped his hands, slowly lacing the cotton between his knuckles, the way he always did, then stepped up to the bag. He was not throwing knockout punches. I was working muscle memory, slipping jabs that were not there, pivoting on the balls of his feet, snapping crisp combinations. Pop, pop, thud. He was so far inside the rhythm that he never noticed the tripod being set up 10 feet away. "Hey, check out the lethal weapon over here," the mocking voice cut through him. He lowered his hands and turned chest, still heaving a little. Gavin and Garrett stood there, both shirtless and gleaming, Garrett holding his phone on a stabilizer with the little red light glowing. "Look at this footwork, guys," Gavin said straight into the lens. "This is exactly what we talk about on the stream. The modern male thinks he's Rocky because he can slap a leather bag. Put him in a real fight and he folds like a lawn chair." Around them, the gym began to go quiet. People stopped their sets, dumbbells hanging in the air, the room filled with that thick, uncomfortable charge that comes before something breaks. Nathaniel unfastened his wraps, his face flat. "Turn the camera off, Gavin." "Oh, did I hurt your feelings, Dad?" Gavin stepped in close into Nathaniel's space, towering over him by 2 inches. "I'm just educating my audience, showing them the difference between a real martial artist and a guy who watches UFC on his couch." "I'm not bothering you," Nathaniel said, his voice dropping. "Leave me alone." Garrett circled for a better angle. "Then prove it. Step on the mats with us. Light sparring. Let's see what those soft hands can do against a black belt." Nathaniel looked past Gavin's shoulder. Chloe had lifted her head from the drawing, her brown eyes wide and confused, edged with fear. She did not understand why these loud men were being mean to her daddy. Inside, Nathaniel, the operator, strained against the leash. The math ran through his mind in a fraction of a second. Gavin's stance was too wide, weight loaded on the lead foot. A low calf kick would drop him. Garrett had one hand busy holding the camera and his chin exposed. A palm strike would put him on the floor before the phone hit the ground. 4 seconds, and both would be finished. But Chloe was watching. If he broke these boys in front of her, his daughter would see a monster wearing her father's face. The police would come. The quiet, careful life he had built would burn down around her. Real strength was not only knowing how to end something, it was knowing when to keep the weapon holstered. "I don't fight," Nathaniel said. He shouldered his bag and stepped past Gavin, meaning to collect Chloe and go. Gavin was not satisfied. The clip was not viral enough. As Nathaniel passed, Gavin shoved his shoulder hard into Nathaniel's chest. Nathaniel stumbled, caught himself, and the swinging gym bag knocked into Chloe's bench. The crayon box hit the floor and burst, scattering broken color across the rubber mats. Chloe gasped and shrank back against the wall, her bottom lip trembling. Silence dropped over ironclad athletics. Even some of the twins' usual hangers-on looked away uneasy at watching a father get shoved in front of his child. Nathaniel stood frozen. He looked at the broken crayons. He looked at his daughter's frightened face. Then he looked at Gavin. For one terrible second, the disguise slipped. The slouch vanished. Nathaniel drew himself up, straight shoulders rolling back, chest filling, and the flat black emptiness in his eyes was so total that Gavin actually took a step backward, a cold animal chill running down his spine. Then Nathaniel breathed out. He broke the stare, knelt on the mat, and began gathering the broken crayons one by one. Garrett found his nerve again and zoomed in on the man on his knees. "That's right," he sneered. "Pick up your toys and go home. Stay out of the way of the big dogs." Nathaniel did not say a word. He pressed the broken crayons into Chloe's small hands, lifted her into his arms, and carried her out. As the glass doors slid shut, he heard the twins laughing and high-fiving over their clip. He buckled Chloe into her car seat, his hands trembling faintly, not from fear, but from the enormous effort of holding the violence inside. "Daddy," she asked softly from the back, "why were those men so mad?" Nathaniel gripped the wheel until his knuckles went white. "They're not mad, sweetie. They're just confused about what makes a man strong." "Are you strong, Daddy?" He met her eyes in the mirror. "I'm strong enough to know when to wait." The internet is a machine that makes cruelty louder. By Monday morning, a clip titled "Fake Tough Guy, Dad Bows Down to Real Black Belts" had passed 200,000 views. It had been shared on local Austin pages. The twins had cut the footage carefully, removing the part where they knocked over Chloe's crayons, framing the whole thing as a coward, backing down from a polite sparring offer. Nathaniel did not have social media, but he did not need it to feel the change. At school drop-off, some of the other parents would not meet his eye. Samuel called to apologize and offered to ban the twins on the spot. Nathaniel politely told him not to. The breaking point did not come from the humiliation. It came from a phone call on a rainy Wednesday night. Nathaniel was at the kitchen table going over logistics contracts when his phone buzzed. The screen read, "Tank." Tank was a man built like the vehicle he was named for, a fellow retired SEAL who had served with Nathaniel on SEAL Team 3. They had bled into the same dirt on the same bad nights. These days, Tank ran a tactical training facility out in West Texas. "Hey, brother," Nathaniel answered. Tank's deep voice came through with no greeting, no small talk. "Tell me I did not just watch a couple of spray-tanned influencers punk the man who carried me out of a burning compound in Fallujah." Nathaniel rubbed his temples. "You saw the video." "Half my staff saw the video. Nate, what is going on? Since when do you let boys like that put their hands on you?" "Chloe was there, Tank." His voice tightened. "I'm not bringing that part of my life into hers, I told you. I buried that guy." "You don't bury who you are, you just put him to sleep." Tank's tone went flat and serious. "Look, I get it. You're a dad first. But answer me one thing. What did Chloe learn that day? That it's fine to let bullies walk all over you, that bad men do bad things and stroll off laughing?" The words landed like a body blow. Nathaniel looked across the room at Chloe's little backpack by the door. He had spent his whole career standing between the innocent and the wolves. Was he really going to let his own daughter watch him play the sheep? "What do you want me to do, Tank? I can't jump them in a parking lot. I'm not a thug." Tank gave a low, dark laugh. "You're not a thug. You're a tactician. You don't fight men like that in the street. You fight them where they think they're gods. You fight them in the light where they've got nowhere to hide." The next day on his lunch break, Nathaniel drove to Ironclad alone and walked straight into Samuel's office. Samuel looked up from his ledger, his face heavy with guilt. "Nate, listen, man. I'm pulling their memberships. I mean it." "Don't." Nathaniel's voice had lost its usual softness. "I saw the flyer in the lobby. You're hosting an open charity sparring tournament next month for the Children's Hospital." Samuel blinked. "Yeah, amateur thing. Kickboxing and submission grappling rules. The Fosters practically demanded I set it up so they could show off for their followers. Why? Put my name in the bracket." Samuel leaned back, eyes widening. "Nate, those boys are arrogant, but they're technically dangerous. They've been training in real dojos since they were kids. I don't want to watch you get hurt trying to prove a point." Nathaniel leaned over the desk. The tired, friendly dad was gone. The man looking back at Samuel had eyes like chips of flint. "Just put my name in the bracket." When the finalized bracket went up on the gym's digital board 3 days later, the whispers started. Gavin and Garrett were stretching on the mats when one of their followers ran over, pointing at the screen. Gavin walked over and read the matchups. In the heavyweight submission grappling division first round, Gavin Foster versus Nathaniel Reed. Garrett burst out laughing. No way, the dad actually signed up. I wants to get humiliated on a live stream. Gavin smiled thin and cruel. This is perfect. We're going to make an example out of him. I'm not just going to submit him. I'm going to make him beg on camera, drag it out the full 5 minutes before I snap his arm. What they did not know was that 3 miles away in a grim, unair-conditioned warehouse gym owned by a retired MMA fighter, Nathaniel Reed, was peeling off the soft civilian he had pretended to be for 3 years. He stripped down to combat shorts. In the dim light, the density of him was almost frightening. His back was a map of corded muscle and old scars, his shoulders thick from years of carrying heavy packs and injured men. He didn't strike the bags with the bouncy flow of a sport fighter. He hit them with the concussive, bone-breaking intent of a man trained to end things in close quarters. Every elbow, every knee, every throw carried no wasted motion and no ego. He was oiling a machine that had sat quiet a long time. For 4 weeks he woke at 4 in the morning. He ran 5 miles in a 40-pound vest. He drilled joint locks built not to score points, but to disable chokes that cut off blood in seconds, and adapted his lethal military combatives to fit inside the tournament rules. He would play their game. He would just play it at a level of controlled violence they could not imagine. The warehouse owner, a retired fighter named Ruiz, who asked no questions, watched him work one evening and finally set down his coffee. I've trained a lot of guys, Ruiz said. You're not training to win a trophy. What are you training for? Nathaniel kept hitting the bag. Pop, pop, thud. To make a point without leaving anyone in the hospital, he said. That's harder than it sounds. Ruiz nodded, slowly picked his coffee back up, and let him work. He had seen the flat look in the man's eyes and decided he did not need the rest of the story. Every night when he got home, Nathaniel showered, put the soft dad back on like a coat, and read Chloe 2 chapters of her book. She never knew that the man tucking her in had spent his morning taking apart a training dummy piece by piece. That was the point. She was never going to see it. The tournament was the one place he would let it show, and only because it was the one place the twins had chosen to stand. On the morning of this tournament, Ironclad was electric. The bleachers were pulled out, food trucks were parked outside, and a big padded ring sat in the center of the floor under a red digital clock. The Foster twins were in their element, ringed by an entourage, matching rash guards talking loudly into cameras and promising first-round finishes. Nathaniel came in quietly through the back in a plain black shirt and dark shorts, carrying a small duffel. He did not look angry. He did not look nervous. His heart rate sat at a cool 50 beats a minute. As he wrapped his hands in the locker room, he glanced at his phone. The lock screen was a photo of Chloe. He locked it and slid it into the bag. He was done waiting. The air inside was a mix of body spray, stale sweat, and cheap energy drinks. More than 300 people packed shoulder to shoulder around the fenced mat. In the blue corner, Gavin held court like a wrestler making an entrance skin, shining with baby oil, a friend live streaming to 30,000 viewers. He thumped his chest and pointed into the camera, promising an execution. In the red corner, Nathaniel sat on a folding chair, unnaturally still. He did not bounce or slap himself to raise his adrenaline. He simply watched the mat and breathed in a slow 4 count. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4. It was the box breathing he had used in the belly of a C-130 before jumping into hostile country. All right, gentlemen, center of the mat. The referee was Richard Henderson, a no-nonsense veteran of the local grappling circuit, a man who had seen enough amateur brawls to know when ego was writing checks the body could not cash. Gavin jogged out with a contemptuous smirk, not even meeting Nathaniel's eyes, looking instead at his chest, already dismissing him. Nathaniel stood and walked to the center, and the crowd's murmur shifted. Without the hoodie, the sheer build of him was impossible to miss. Impossibly broad shoulders, a back layered with thick working muscle, and that pale shrapnel scar on his left shoulder, drawing double takes from the front row. Standard submission rules, Richard said, hand between them. No strikes, no small joint manipulation. Protect yourselves at all times. Touch hands if you want. Gavin scoffed and kept his hands down. Let's just get this over with so I can get my protein shake, old man. Nathaniel said nothing. He did not offer a hand touch either. He nodded once at the referee. Fight! Gavin exploded forward, hunting a viral highlight. He launched into a flashy flying triangle, throwing his whole body into the air to wrap his legs around Nathaniel's neck. It was the kind of move that wowed civilians and cameras. It was also the kind of move that got you killed in a real fight. Nathaniel did not flinch. As Gavin left the ground, Nathaniel took a half step back, kept a rooted, immovable base, and caught him mid-flight, one hand at the waist and one behind the neck, killing his momentum. For a split second, Gavin hung there, and his eyes went wide with panic. It felt like he had thrown himself into a concrete pillar. With a heavy thud that carried over the loudspeakers, Nathaniel slammed him flat onto his back. The air left Gavin's lungs. Before he could recover, Nathaniel bypassed his guard entirely. This was not sport jiu-jitsu. He drove a knee into Gavin's diaphragm, wrapped a thick arm around his head in a scarf hold, dropped his hips, and let the crushing, concentrated weight of a man who knew exactly how to fold a human body settle down like a hydraulic press. Gavin's smug mask evaporated into blind terror. His chest was locked. He could not draw a breath. He thrashed his legs, trying to buck the older man off, but Nathaniel felt like an anvil bolted to the floor. "You wanted an audience, Gavin," Nathaniel said, his voice a low, dead rasp that only the two of them could hear over the roar. "Now you have one." He shifted his weight a fraction, isolated. Gavin's right arm trapped it and bent it back into a straight arm bar against his own thigh. He didn't snap it. He pushed it to the exact edge where the joint began to scream and held it there. Gavin's eyes rolled. His face went a deep, mottled purple. He was not thinking about sponsors or followers or his alpha mindset. He was drowning in the total loss of control. He slapped the mat with his free hand. Tap, 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 tap. The match had lasted 42 seconds. Richard rushed in, waving his arms. "Stop. Winner by submission." Nathaniel released the hold instantly and rose in one clean motion. Not a drop of sweat on his brow, his breathing unchanged. He did not celebrate. He did not look at the camera. He turned and walked back to his folding chair, his face a mask of indifference. On the mat, Gavin rolled onto his side, coughing, clutching his ribs, tears of pain and humiliation streaming down his face while the live stream caught every second. The gym had gone dead silent, the kind of silence that follows a car crash. The loudmouth who had terrorized the place for months had just been dismantled with the ease of a man taking out the trash. At the edge of the mat, Garrett dropped his phone. The stabilizer clattered against the floor. His face was pale, his jaw loose. I watched the medical staff help his wheezing brother up, and rage flooded him, hot and stupid. Their whole brand was built on the illusion of invincibility. If this stood, their empire would crumble by nightfall. The bracket said Garrett had two other opponents before he could ever meet the winner of his brother's match. He no longer cared about the bracket. "Hey!" Garrett screamed, vaulting the low fence and storming onto the mat. He jabbed a trembling finger at Nathaniel. Me, right now. You caught him off guard. Let's go." Richard stepped in front of him, a hand on his chest. "Son, back off. That's not how this works. You have your own matches." "I don't care about the bracket." Garrett shoved the referee's arm aside and turned to Samuel at ringside. "Make the fight. Sam or my brother and I pull our memberships and take half this gym with us." Samuel looked torn. Before he could speak, a voice cut through it. "Let him fight." Everyone turned. Nathaniel had risen from his chair. He walked back to the center, his dark eyes locked on Garrett. But there was no anger in them, only a hollow, absolute calm. "If he wants the lesson early, I'll give it to him." Samuel nodded reluctantly. Richard sighed, plainly disapproving, but waved both men to the middle. The crowd surged forward. "Phones up." "You're dead, old man," Garrett hissed, dropping into a deep Muay Thai stance. "I'm going to rip your head off." "Focus on your breathing, Garrett," Nathaniel said softly. "You're going to need it." "Fight." Garrett threw a looping overhand, right meant to knock Nathaniel out cold, a blatant foul under grappling rules, a desperate street tactic fueled by ego. To a man who had dodged shrapnel, the punch moved in slow motion. Nathaniel slipped inside the arc of it, past Garrett's guard. He did not strike back. He did not need to. He clamped both hands behind Garrett's neck in a Muay Thai plum clinch and snapped his head down with bone-jarring force. As Garrett stumbled forward off balance, Nathaniel pivoted, used the momentum against him, and dumped him with a clean hip throw. Garrett crashed to the mat, the breath exploding out of him. Before he could scramble, Nathaniel was on him, moving with the fluid efficiency of a predator. He secured a kimura on the left arm, figure-4 grip, and stepped over the head, pinning the shoulders flat. He did not crank it. He locked it in place tight enough to stretch the ligaments. Freezing Garrett in total vulnerability, staring up into the blinding lights with his arm trapped in a vise. "This is the reality of violence, Garrett," Nathaniel said low and steady beside his ear, carrying to the silent crowd. "It's not a ring light. It's not a hashtag. It's the moment you understand you're entirely at the mercy of someone who could break you, and there's nothing you can do about it." Garrett gritted his teeth, trying to roll out. He could not budge. "You prey on people because you think they're weak," Nathaniel went on, flat and calm. "You mistake kindness for fragility. You mistake a father's patience for cowardice. Let this be the last time you make that mistake." He leaned back and added a fraction of pressure to the shoulder. A sick, tight pop came from the joint, not a break, a warning. Garrett shrieked, and all the bravado melted at once into raw panic. I tap, stop, please!" He slapped Nathaniel's thigh over and over. Nathaniel let go instantly. He rose, adjusted his shorts, and did not raise his hands. He did not look at the stunned, cheering crowd. He walked to his corner, picked up his duffel, and slung it over his shoulder. As he moved toward the exit, the crowd parted for him like water. Nobody spoke. Near the back, leaning against a stack of heavy bags, stood Tank, the big bearded instructor in a faded cap, wearing the smallest knowing smile. As Nathaniel passed, Tank gave him a sharp, respectful nod. Nathaniel returned it. The ghost was back in the bottle, and the wolves had been cleared from the perimeter. By Sunday, the landscape had flipped. The live stream had been screen recorded and shared millions of times, and the story was no longer about the Fosters' dominance. It was about two bullies being taken apart by a man they had picked as an easy mark. The internet, cruel and quick, turned on the twins overnight. Sponsors dropped them. Their subscriber count fell off a cliff. They never showed their faces at Ironclad again. On Monday evening, with the Austin sun low and gold across the pavement, Nathaniel pushed open the gym doors in his faded gray sweatpants and oversized hoodie, a pink princess backpack over one shoulder. Behind the office glass, Chloe sat at the desk, coloring a dragon and humming. Samuel looked up from his ledger and broke into a wide, relieved smile. "Hey, Nate. Good to see you." "Hey, Sam." Nathaniel's voice was back to its soft, rumbling warmth. He glanced at his daughter and smiled. "Just need to hit the heavy bag for a bit. Standard routine." He was not a hero. He was not a viral sensation. I was a dad protecting his peace. A man who knew that sometimes you let the monster out of the cage just long enough to remind the monsters in the real world exactly who they are dealing with. If this story of hard-earned karma got your blood pumping, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life justice stories. What would you have done in Nathaniel's shoes? Drop it in the comments. Share this with a friend who loves watching bullies get exactly what they deserve, and tap the bell so you never miss the next one. See you there.